speaking of the rubber hitting the road, we couldn't do the show today without giving you a little taste of what Matt Gaetz has been up to in the last, I don't know, Krystal, 72 hours. He's a busy man.
Yeah, moves fast. On to the next thing.
Moves fast, on to the next thing. He, immediately after withdrawing, basically, from the Attorney General confirmation process, he joined Cameo, as one does in these scenarios.
In these times.
Yes, because he will not be returning to the House seat. He actually won re-election, so he technically could have. He resigned from this Congress, but not from the next Congress. So he technically could have taken the seat back if he wanted to, but he doesn't want to, maybe because he wants to run for Florida governor, or maybe because in 2024 in the United States of America, it's way more fun to be on Cameo. So
more fun to be an influencer.
Take a look at Matt Gaetz talking to a longtime patriot on Cameo.
Hey, Lisa Kovac, it's your favorite former Congressman, Matt Gaetz. I just wanted to thank you for being a longtime patriot, for supporting President Trump through thick and thin. And I know you were bummed out when the news broke that I wouldn't be the next Attorney General. We did get a great replacement in Pam Bondi. She's going to do an awesome job. You have nothing to worry about. But hey, listen, I'm still going to be in the fight for you and your family. And I know things are tough right now dealing with your car and Bruce, and I wish him a very speedy recovery. So next time you visit Florida, as everyone should do, very frequently, make sure to pay a visit with your lovely Aunt Kathy. Stop by and say hello. Also, say hello to your mother, Carol, for me. And have a Merry Christmas. Have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family. And this is just such an exciting time to be an American. We've got the House. We've got the Senate. We've got Donald Trump in the presidency. We're going to actually fix the problems. We're going to secure the border, clean up our streets, get the economy roaring again. So we've got a lot to be thankful for.
I think he's found his calling.
It's $500 plus. That's what's listed as the price right now.
It was originally $250. You know, I guess demand surged and he had to up the price there.
He has 12 reviews, all 5 stars. So he's most popular for a pep talk and roasts. So
roasts.
If you're interested, Matt Gaetz, and you have $500+ lying around. One of the funny things I think is him being excited about the Pam Bondi pick, because one of the things, we've talked about this before, that Matt Gaetz is actually very good on is like swampiness. He's completely consistent on like congressional stock trading, on foreign entanglements, on all of those like serious and important things that nobody else wants to talk about or take seriously. Pam Bondi, of course, is now coming from work as a Qatar lobbyist, and Matt Gaetz is like, excellent pick. It's just, you know, that's MAGA world, I guess.
Yeah, that is MAGA world. No, I mean, I think with Pam Bondi in there, any hope that there's going to be like increased antitrust action or whatever, like that's definitely not happening whatsoever.
Maybe on tech, it's possible that on like Google or something.
Something where it's seen as like an ideological adversary. But even there.
Because
like,
even Bill Barr did that.
Even there though, you know, all the tech people also bent the knee to Trump. Like they also have done what they need to do to get in his good graces. So I don't expect it there either, but you never know what direction they'll ultimately go in. I did think it was noteworthy. I'm curious your thoughts, Emily. I did think it was noteworthy that Gaetz decided to pull out of this process and basically was like, look, Trump, according to the reporting, Trump came to him and was like, look, you just don't have the votes. Now, why is that significant? Well, because it's an indication that they're not just gonna go to the mat and try to do recess appointments for all of these picks. And, you know, Gaetz is not the only one who could potentially face trouble getting confirmed. RFK Jr., I think, is a question mark, although I think there's a decent chance he'll get through. Pete Hegseth is the other one that I would say is a question mark at this point. There may be others as well. In fact, actually, the Department of Labor head, who's pro-union Republican, might be weirdly enough be a problem. Although I suspect that enough Democrats would cross to vote for her that would mitigate any problem that she might have from the right wing with regard to her confirmation. But you know, it was noteworthy to me that it was effectively a sign of backing down from their most aggressive posture of basically like, you're going to accept whatever nominees we're going to put up, you're going to vote for them, and if you aren't willing to vote for them, we're just going to shove them through in a recess appointment. So I found that to be an important indication of how these things are going to play out.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good point. And with Gaetz, I think it really underscores that the reason, I mean, it's true, he didn't have the votes. This was not 4D chess to the extent that I can tell. It wasn't like this brilliant plot to get Matt Gaetz in a better position to run for Florida governor. We can actually put B9 on the screen. This is Matt Gaetz' resignation letter to Mike Johnson saying, basically, I'm not going to take the oath of office for the same position in the 119th Congress, so that would be when that happens in January. So I don't think that this was an attempt to set him up and say, we're just gonna. We know he's not going to get through, but we'll elevate him, and then he can have a glide path to some other position.
Or the other theory was also like, oh, he'll take the heat off the other ones and make it easier for them to get confirmed.
Which I think actually may partially be part of the calculation. I don't know. To me, it makes sense that like they realized it would be a really tough one. Donald Trump would love to have Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. There's no question about it. And I think part of it was he wanted to smoke out the senators and sort of see where certain people, like Mitch McConnell is a really good example, reportedly one of the people who would not have been voting for Matt Gaetz. There's no surprise about that at all. But I think Trump partially wanted to like test, first of all, John Thune in his first like literal week as Senate Majority Leader, or he will be, as Senate Majority Leader. And so he partially wanted to test the waters on that. He wanted to see what Gaetz could do if it was possible. But then also he now can say, oh, Mitch McConnell, you weren't voting for Matt Gaetz? Okay, that's interesting.
And that new guy coming in Utah was another one. Curtis,
right?
Who's replacing Mitt Romney in the Senate, was another one who reportedly was not going to vote for Matt Gaetz.
Yeah,
just an important piece of information for the Trump people to know.
And I think the other thing to just cap that is, and the point that you're making is, this is the most important position as Donald Trump sees it. Like if this was the State Department, I think Donald Trump and his allies might have kept going, even though that's a hugely consequential position, because they want to have everybody in place at the Department of Justice on day one. They do not want there to be any time wasted with the DOJ. That is the one agency that they are laser focused on more than any other, because that is, when Donald Trump says, I am your retribution, that is firmly directed at the DOJ. So my sense of this is that they realized it would be uncertain what would happen with Gaetz through the holidays and then into January, and just like, this is not worth our time at all. We need to have somebody who will be confirmed and can start saying, I'm hiring this person, this person, this person, this is what we're going to do on day one, et cetera, et cetera. So they want to go.
I think it's also worth noting, I mean, I think Gaetz as a human being genuinely sucks, but he does actually have some more heterodox positions when it comes certainly to antitrust and economics and these things. Pam Bondi has none of that. And so the fact that Trump found each of these people to be sort of like equally worthy candidates for Attorney General tells you that it has nothing to do with how they think about corporate power or whatever. It has to do with one thing and one thing alone. Are they loyal to Donald J. Trump?
Right.
Are they going to do what he wants them to do in that position? That was always and will always be the only qualification, the only thing that really matters to him in terms of putting in this position. When he says, I will be your retribution, like who, if you were out there in the world and you've been a Donald Trump adversary, critic, whatever, like who should be worried right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the DOJ is probably anyone who's like a career at the DOJ, meaning they've been there for decades and were working on indictments against Donald Trump, or people who were working on like FACE Act stuff against anti-abortion protesters. Like that stuff is going to be very clear. Do you mean retribution in terms of also like where they
investigations
might aggressively?
Who will be targeted?
I bet. I mean, well, it's kind of interesting because some people have said there'll be more scrutiny on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's relationship with Hunter Biden. But then Trump has this weird thing where he didn't go after Hillary Clinton.
I kind of doubt that, to be honest with you.
It's interesting, though. I mean, I don't know. It's also the other place I would have said is the tech leaders who, to your point, have kind of bent the knee. Yeah. Well, a lot of what Trump world would have wanted to do in 2021, 2022 was go after those tech leaders like Mark Zuckerberg. And Zuckerberg has said he regrets listening to the former FBI people and the FBI people. Mark Zuckerberg famously met with the FBI and had this conversation before the Biden laptop drops, the Hunter Biden laptop drops, is saying, expect something that's going to look like, and we now know they already had the laptop, but that's going to look like Russian disinformation. And Zuckerberg was like, oh, okay. So when the laptop story broke, he was eager to suppress
primed
it.
To see it that way.
Right. And so that previously, I mean, there would have been investigations of those guys. There's no question about it. But I think instead is what you're going to see is investigations of people who were involved in Russia collusion. And even though some of those people have already been investigated, I think you'll see even more scrutiny. Anybody who was leaking to the press during that, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. I know those are old names, and it sounds like, but I think that's like these random people that were parts of that. I think is especially going to be room for targeting.
And what about Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Fonnie Willis?
Yeah. Yeah, probably all of the above. And Fani Willis seems to have the most spotted record of all of them in terms of like soft corruption. So that'll be a lot of fun for them.
I think what you're pointing to as well, and what we're discussing with, Google, Zuckerberg, et cetera, bending the knee in advance, and you saw a similar dynamic with Jeff Bezos. Over the Washington Post, like, oh, we're not gonna endorse. You're all good here, and actually even getting in a little Twitter exchange. Back and forth, where Elon had suggested that Jeff Bezos was saying negative things about Trump's potential victory.
Yes.
And Bezos jumps on, no, that's not true.
Yes.
And, also fits with Joe and Mika making their trek down to Mar-a-Lago. And Steve Bannon had said, now whether this has any veracity, we don't know, but he had said that the DOJ is going to go after MSNBC hosts.
Yes.
He name-checked specifically Ari Melber, but you would think that, Joe and Mika could potentially be at the top of that list. And so I think a lot...
Ari Melber?
I know it's a random one to be at that. Like, I don't know why. I feel like Ari...
He covers a lot of the
legal stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's his beat. He's, former lawyer. He, goes in on that. And I think he's even had... I want to say he's had Bannon on the show and they've, fought with each other. Anyway, apparently Steve Bannon has a grievance, particularly with Ari Melber. Whatever. But, I think a lot of the work is already done in terms of just having, the threat of a Matt Gaetz, the threat of a Trump loyalist out there to go after people with investigations or to hurt their businesses. In the case of Jeff Bezos, who has a lot of business with the government, so there's a lot of sort of compliance in advance to try to get on Trump's good side and try to avoid the worst of the federal government being weaponized against you. So in any case, obviously, that position will be really consequential. The other piece that I was curious about is whether Pete Hegseth seems to me like he would be the other one that would be difficult potentially to get confirmed. Also reportedly, Trump was pissed that Hegseth hadn't been upfront with him about not only the specifics of the allegations, the sexual assault allegations against him, but also the fact that he had, paid some undisclosed sum to the woman who accused him of rape. He denies the charges and put out his side of the story. But let me go ahead and play for you. This is getting a lot of attention on CNN. Dana Bash going back and forth with Senator Markwayne Mullin about the Pete Hegseth allegations. Go ahead and take a listen to that.
I want to just make sure our viewers know what that report said, that the woman said that when she tried to leave Hegseth's hotel room, he blocked the door, ended up on top of her and performed a sexual act. She also said that she, quote, remembered saying no to a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
Dana, if we're going to get into that, let's talk about the whole police report. Now, I know you read it, and I have definitely read it. First of all, the police report, if you look at it, it's very clear that what Pete was saying and what his attorney was saying was accurate. There was no case here. He was falsely accused. If you go back and you read the report, there was 2 eyewitnesses said that she was being the aggressor. Pete wasn't even flirting with her. He was flirting with a different girl, and the other girl was trying to flirt with Pete, the Jane Doe here that is unmentioned. They also said that she was holding his arm as they were leaving and that Pete was intoxicated and the Jane Doe was not. They obviously said, multiple people said that she was aggressively, to the point of aggressively, use the word aggressively, flirting towards him when they were in the courtyard.
Senator,
when the hotel staff came in. Well, I'm just saying that you told one part of this, Dana, that isn't accurate.
I wasn't done. I wasn't done. You're giving his side, and it was definitely, the police report is definitely what she said and what he said. You're absolutely right. I hadn't gotten there, but I appreciate you giving that other side for me. So I guess that just kind of answers the question, which is, from your perspective, you believe his part of the story and not hers.
I absolutely do. He wasn't charged. He wasn't even kind of charged in this. There was no crime committed. The police dropped everything. It's what's unfortunate in today's world. You can be accused of anything, and then especially if it's something like this, you're automatically assumed to be guilty. If you read the police report from cover to cover, which I have, and I know every reporter has too, it is clear there was nothing there.
So he's obviously prepared to vote for Pete Hegseth, but may not be representative of the entirety of the Republican caucus. What do you what is your sense there, Emily? Because not just because of these allegations, But in addition, I mean, Pete Hegseth is also a very ideological guy who said that, like, for example, women shouldn't serve in combat roles. And I can imagine there being at least a few Republican senators who may take issue with that.
May take issue with that because, you know, senators obviously aren't up for election every 2 years, but you can imagine being Susan Collins and voting to confirm somebody like Pete Hegseth and then having to run for re-election and answer for it. Yeah, maybe even not when you're running for re-election, but even when you're just back in Maine talking to constituents, that, you know, is not going to be super easy for somebody like Susan Collins. And he can afford to lose a few votes. But, you know, if you have a mass defection, or even if you have like 5 to 10, that's not good enough. You can't get
There will be no Democrat who would vote for Pete Hegseth. So you're not going to get any crossovers there.
No, not at all. And let's also remember that, you know, Pete Hegseth is firmly opposed in some good ways, and in some ways that both of us would probably disagree with, but in some good ways, firmly opposed to this like entrenched bureaucracy at the Pentagon and poses a major threat to a lot of that. And he's somebody who's from the outside that the defense contractors are not familiar with and not comfortable with. He has positions on Ukraine that they're definitely not comfortable with. And to that extent, I think there's going to be a ton of pressure on people, again, like Susan Collins, like Mitch McConnell, who's not going to want to shake up the Pentagon bureaucracy. He's now staying in the Senate specifically to keep the money flowing to Ukraine. Like, that is how he has positioned himself and said is going to be his legacy. So it's not just this. This is something that's going to make it a lot more difficult. But that pressure is going to be enormous. And I know that he kind of has normie conservative positions on things like Israel and even on different questions, but he's from outside the Pentagon, and that makes them very, very uncomfortable. And so the lobbyists will be out in full force pressuring people unless they decide they think they can work with the guy or that he'll be easily manipulated. That doesn't seem to be the case so far. It seems like everyone's pretty opposed to him, but the pressure is going to be enormous not to confirm Pete Hegseth.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.